This is Daf Yomi, tractate Avodah Zarah, page 29, Daf Chavtet, starting from the bottom of 28b, with the words Amar Rav Yehuda, Zibura ude Charzeh, Silva v'simta, ude Chayrena, v'eta yedvaya shata, kuli bebane sakanta. Chama l'chama v'stir l'tzina v'chilu v'ziranda Chami mel'akrav v'kari v'zibua v'chilu v'ziranda Chami mel'silva v'kirire. Rav Yehuda says, with regard to one who suffers from the sting of a hornet, or the prick of a thorn, or an abscess, or one whose eye pains him, or one overcome by a fever, bathing in a bathhouse is a life-threatening danger of all these. Additionally, eating radish is good for a fever, and eating beets is good for chills. But the reverse, meaning eating radish when one has chills or beets when one has a fever, poses a danger. Similarly, eating hot foods is good for the sting of a scorpion, and cold foods are good for a hornet sting, but not the other way around. The reverse is the danger. Hot water is good for a thorn embedded in one's skin, and cold water is good. And now we go to 29a with the words lechaspanita, v'cheilufa sakanta, for facial wounds, but the reverse presents a danger. Chala lesibore, umanina letanit, v'cheilufa sakanta, tara lesibore sakanta, ishata v'zibore sakanta. Sounds like chagadia a little bit. Ka'evena v'zibore sakanta. Vinegar is good for one to consume after bloodletting, and eating small fish is good for one who has completed a fast. But the reverse is a danger. Eating cress and then undergoing bloodletting poses a danger. With regard to one who suffers from a fever and undergoes bloodletting, this poses a danger to his life. Similarly, one who suffers from pain of the eye and undergoes bloodletting endangers his life. On the second day after eating fish, one may let blood, and on the second day after letting blood, one may eat fish. With regard to eating fish on the third day after letting blood, or letting blood on the third day after eating fish, both of these actions pose a danger. Tanu Rabbanan lemegish dam lo yochal chagabish lo chala. Oh, it's a simon. It's ches, gimel, beis, and shin, which is chalav, gavina, batzalim, and shachalaim. לא חלב ולא גבינה, בצלים ולא שחלאים. יום החלב מרבעי נאיתי ויאת לחלב ויאתה לחמרה ונעבר בינו בהדי הדדי ונשתה. וכי מפני לא מפני על המזרח אשר ייר משום ניגש עליך. The Gemara presents a series of health-related statements. The sages taught one who lets blood may not eat the following foods, corresponding to the acronym Ches, Gimel, Beis, and Shin. That is, he may consume neither milk, nor cheese, nor onions, nor cress. If he ate one of these, Abaye said he should bring a quarter log of vinegar and a quarter log of wine, mix them together and drink the mixture. And when he defecates, he should defecate only toward the east of the city, because the odor of the excrement after that treatment is offensive. Where is he going that people are going to smell it? I don't get it. Maybe to himself, maybe, who knows? Since the wind does not usually blow from the east, it is less likely to spread the stench. Okay. Amar Rabbi Yehoshua ben Levi, ma lenunkale v'shabbat, ma yunkale. Amar Rabbi Abba istumcha deliba mai asuta me tekamon levavinya degat anatzir Avodah. Rabbi Yehoshua ben Levi says, one may lift the unkali on Shabbat. The Gemara asks, what is the unkali? Rabbi Abba said, it is the edge of the ribs near the heart, which sometimes bend inward, in which case they must be lifted and straightened into their proper action. The edge of the ribs near the heart, they bend inward? You have to lift them? I don't get that. Anyway, the Gemara asks, what is the cure for one whose unkali has been bent? You should take cumin, caraway, mint, wormwood, saturja, and hyssop. Lili ba v'chamra v'simanach v'yayin yismach leva v'nosh v'ruch ha'mamayim v'simanach v'ruch Elohim v'nachefes al penei hamayim echuda v'shichra v'simanach v'chada v'shichma. This remedy is beneficial for several ailments, and the Gemara presents each of these in turn. For curing the heart, the above combination should be taken with wine, and your mnemonic in this verse is, and the wine makes glad the heart of man. Psalms 104:15. For curing an ailment that arises due to the wind, one drinks the mixture in water, and your mnemonic is, and the spirit, ruach, of God hovered over the face of the waters. Genesis 1:2. For childbirth, a woman in labor drinks the mixture with beer, and your mnemonic is with her pitcher upon her shoulder. Genesis 24:15. בשגלת מלה 5 אצבעי תהה בשתלי רבשי שחי כל אחד לחודי בשגל מלא אצבע רבתי ומלא אצבע זוטרתי אמרבבה ענב לדפורני ולא יתסי אני אמר לי אהותיה הייתי כוזכת איתה ומלא מיה ורמי ביתר ודה. תדובשה תצלד בכוכבי ולמחר אשתי עבדי אחי ויסתסי. Rav Acha, the son of Rava, ground all these together and took a handful of the mixture and drank it. Rav Ashi ground each and every one of the herbs separately and took all that he could hold between his large finger and his small finger and drank it. Rav Papa said, I tried all these remedies, and I was not healed until a certain Arab said to me, bring a new jug and fill it with water and place in it a ladle of honey that is suspended among the stars, meaning add the ladle at night, and drink it on the next day. Rav Papa concludes, I did this and I was healed. Tanu Rabbanan, Shisha Devarim, Nerapin et Achoyle, Necholyo, Urefuatan, Refuah, Verohen, Kruv, Utradin, Umesisin. In parentheses it says Yivesha Vekevat, and brackets it says Yiveshin Vekevat. Veheret Veyoteret Hakabet, Vyesh Omrim, Avdagim Getanim, Belod, Erjadagim Getanim Afrim, Marpin, Kol Gufa Sheradam. The sages taught 6 items heal a sick person from his illness, and their cure is a permanent cure, and these are cabbage, beets, water in which dried chamomile was soaked, and the stomach contents of an animal, and the womb of an animal, and the lobe of the liver. And some say small fish are also included in this list, and moreover, eating small fish causes a person's entire body to flourish and grow. עשרת דברים מחזירים זכוי לכל יום, וכל יום קשה. אלו הן האוכל בשר שור, שומן, בשר צלי, בשר ציפורים, וביצת צלויה, ושחל העין, ותיגלחת, ומרחת, בבינה וכבד. ויש אומרים, אף אגוזים, יש אומרים אף קישואין. תנא דבר רבי ישמעאל, למה נקרא שמן קישואין? מפני שהן קשים לכל גופו של אדם כחרבות. 10 items return a sick person to his illness, and his illness becomes even more severe than it originally was. And they are: one who eats ox meat, fat, roasted meat, bird meat, and a roasted egg, and cress, and the act of shaving and bathing, and the consumption of cheese and liver. And some say nuts are also included in this list, and some say cucumbers are also included in this list. The school of Rabbi Ishmael taught, why are they called cucumbers? Because they are as harmful to a person's entire body as swords. Cucumbers are harmful? ואין מספרים מהן בכל מקום. תנו רבנן ישראל מספרים וגוי רואה במראה וגוי מספרים בישראל כיוון שהגיע לבלו איסו שומט על ידו את ידו. The Mishnah states, and one may not have his hair cut by Gentiles anywhere. The sage taught Braita, a Jew who has his hair cut by a Gentile should observe the Gentile's actions in a mirror while he cuts his hair. In the case of a Gentile who has his hair cut by a Jew, when the Jew reaches the Gentile's forelock, and if he removes his hand, does not cut it because it is associated with idol worship. Okay. Amamal Israel המסתבר מגוי רואה במראה היחידמים היא ברשות הרבים למה לי מראה היא ברשות היחיד כי רואה מה יהבי ואוילם ברשות היחיד וכיוון די כמראה מתחזק כאדם חשוב. The master said a Jew who has his hair cut by a Gentile should observe the Gentile's actions in a mirror. The Gemara asks, what are the circumstances of this case? If it is referring to a haircut performed in a public domain, why do I need a mirror? After all, the Gentile will not harm a Jew in public. And if it occurs in a private domain, even if the Jew observes the Gentile's actions, what of it? How does the fact that the Jew is watching prevent the Gentile barber from harming him? The Gemara explains, actually this is referring to a haircut in a private domain, but since there is a mirror in place, the Jew appears as an important person whom the Gentile will hesitate to attack. Okay. Rav Chana bar Mizna havi mistaber migoy bishvile de nardo amalei Chana Chana ya'e koech lizuga amar teteli dabari ad Rabbi Meir. The Gemara relates a relevant incident. Rav Chana bar Bizna was having his hair cut by a Gentile in one of the side streets of Narda'a. The barber said to him, Chana, Chana, your throat is appealing to the razor. Rav Chana bar Bizna said, I have this coming to me since I violated the ruling of Rabbi Meir, who stated that one may not have his hair cut by a Gentile in any location. ואז רבנן לא אמר אימה דמות ולא משוד רבים משוד יחיד ומיאמר יעשה בשביל נדע כבן שיר רבים כשוז רבים דמו. The Gemara asks, and didn't Rav Chana bar Bizna violate the ruling of the rabbis as well? Say that when the rabbis stated that this is permitted to have his haircut by a Gentile, they were referring to a haircut performed in a public domain. But with regard to a haircut performed in a private domain, did they say that it is permitted? Since the side streets of Nardak cannot be considered public domain, evidently Rav Chana bar Bizna violated the ruling of the rabbis. The Gemara explains that Rav Chana bar Bizna maintained, with regard to the side streets of Nardak, since many people are present there, they are assumed it's a public domain, and it would therefore be permitted to have one's hair cut there according to the opinion of the rabbis. But But apparently, Yochanan Bar Bizna didn't think so. He said, it's coming to me, so maybe you probably know. It doesn't say if he was killed or not. We don't know. The Goyim Mistab Yisrael, Kevon Shigil Yehoshua Yada V'Kama Rav Malkia, Amar Avodah Ba'Abba Shlosh Avodah Chol Ruach V'Ruach. The Bride stated, in the case of a Gentile who has his haircut by a Jew, the Jew reaches the Gentile's forelock, he removes his hand and does not cut it, because it is associated with idol worship. The Gemara asks, on how much space should the Jew leave around the forelock? Rabbi Malkiah says that Rav Ada bar Ahava says 3 finger breadths in each and every direction. Shaput shefachos begumos Rav Malkio Blois Efer Mikle Ugevina Rav Malkia. Malkio and Malkia, I remember this from somewhere. Malkia, was it Erevin? I forgot where it was. Anyway, in addition to Rav Malkia, whose ruling was just stated, there's another Mora named Rav Malkiyu. Malkiyu, or Malkio, and Malkia. In order to avoid confusion, the Gemara records their respective rulings. Rav Chanina, the son of Yiga, says the statements concerning a skewer, maidservants, and follicles were issued by Rav Malkiyu, or Malkiyu, and the rulings concerning the forelock, burnt ashes, and cheese were stated by Rabbi Malkiah. Amar Papa Masnisan Umasnisa Rav Malkiah Shematata Rav Malkio V'simanach Matnita Malkata My Benayu Ika Benayu Shvachos. Papa said, in a different opinion, statements from the Mishnah and Braita were issued by Rabbi Malkiah, whereas rulings of halacha that are not related to a Mishnah or Braita were taught by Rav Malkiah. And the mnemonic to remember this is, the Mishnah is a queen, meaning the statements that are referring to the Mishnah were made by Rabbi Malkiah, whose name is similar to the Aramaic term for queen. The Gemara asks, what is the difference between the opinions of Rav Chanina and Rav Papa? The Gemara answers, there is a difference between them with regard to the halacha concerning maidservants. According to Rav Chanina, his halacha was said by Rav Malkiah, whereas Rav Papa holds that it was taught by Rav Malkiah, as is referring to a dispute in the Mishnah. And now we turn the page to 29b. Chav Testament Bays. We're starting a new Mishnah here. New Mishnah. Eilu devarim shel goyim asurin v'surin nisrahanoch. Hayayin hachomet shel goyim. Shehaya mitchilas hayayin mecheres hadriani. Ve'oirois levuvin. Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel Omer, בזמן שקרע שלו אגוד אסור, משוך מותר. The Mishnah discusses the halachic status of various items that belong to Gentiles. These are items that belong to Gentiles and are prohibited to Jews. And their prohibition is that of an item from which deriving benefit is prohibited. Wine and vinegar belonging to Gentiles, that was originally wine, and Hadrianic earthenware, and hides with a tear opposite the heart. Rabban Shimon ben Gamliel says a hide is prohibited only when the tear around his heart is circular, but if it is elongated, it is permitted. As Gentiles will sacrifice a heart only when it has been removed by a circular laceration. Continues the Mishnah. Basar nechas avodah zarah mutar. Hayotze asur. Ibnei shu kizivrei meisim. Divrei Rabbi Akiva. Haolchin letalpus. Asur לשאת ולתת עמהם. והבאים מותרים. Meat that enters the house of idol worship is permitted, and meat that exits his house is prohibited, because it is considered as offerings to the dead. How could it ever be permitted if you can't go into house of idol worship, and once it exits, it's prohibited? Idols. This is the statement of Rabbi Akiva, okay? With regard to those going to a festival of idolatry, the Tarput, is prohibited to engage in business with them. And with regard to those who are coming from it, is permitted to engage in business with them. Nodot hagoyim v'kan kanehen v'yayin shel Yisrael kanus bahen asurin nisu hanao divrei Rabbi Meir v'chachamim oimim min asur nischono hachartzani v'azagin shel goyim asurin v'asurin nisu hanao divrei Rabbi Meir v'chachamim oimim Lachin asurin yeveshin mutarin. Wine skins and jugs belonging to Gentiles, which have a Jew's wine contained in them, are prohibited to Jews, and their prohibition is that of an item from which deriving benefit is prohibited. This is a statement of Rabbi Meir, and the rabbis say their prohibition is not that of an item from which deriving benefit is prohibited, residual grape seeds and grape skins belonging to Gentiles, which are left behind after the grapes are crushed for wine, are prohibited, and their prohibition is that of an item from which deriving benefit is prohibited. This is the statement of Rabbi Meir, and the rabbis say moist grape residues are prohibited, but dry residues are permitted. והמואיה סגובין אספס יקי של גויים אסורים ואיסורים ניסו על דברי רבי מאיר וחמיים ומנסון נסנה. Fish stew and cheese of bait bunyaki belonging to Gentiles are prohibited, and their prohibition is that of an item from which deriving benefit is prohibited. This is the statement of Rabbi Meir. The rabbis say their prohibition is not of an item from which deriving benefit is prohibited. Amar Rabbi Yehuda, Sha'al Rabbi Yishmael es Rabbi Yehoshua, כשהוא ראה הולכים בדרך, אמר לו, מפני מה אסרו גבינות גויים? אמרו לו, מפני שמעמידין אותה בקיבה של נבלה. Rabbi Yehuda said, Rabbi Yishmael asked Rabbi Yehoshua a series of questions while they were traveling along the road. Rabbi Yishmael said to him, for what reason did the sages prohibit the cheeses of Gentiles? Rabbi Yehoshua said to him, because Gentiles curdle cheese with the stomach contents of unslaughtered animal carcasses. And as the carcass of an unslaughtered animal is not kosher, cheese that is curdled with it is likewise prohibited. Amar lo, alo kebas. Amar lo, die, 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 die. Amar lo, alo kebas alo kebas alo Amar kohen shadal yafish sofer chayam v'lo yidod alo. In response, Rabbi Yishmael said to him, but aren't the stomach contents of a burnt offering subject to a more stringent prohibition than the stomach contents of an unslaughtered animal carcass? And yet they said, a priest who is open-minded with regard to what he eats may swallow the stomach contents of a burnt offering while they are raw. And the other sages did not agree with him. But the sages said, one may not derive benefit from the stomach contents of a burnt offering ab initio, and if one did derive benefit from them, he is not liable for misusing consecrated property. According to both opinions, deriving benefit from the stomach contents of a burnt offering is not prohibited by Torah law. Since the halacha with regard to burnt offering is more stringent than that of animal carcass, why would deriving benefit from the carcass be prohibited, while deriving benefit from the burnt offering is permitted? Amar lo, מפני שמעמידין אותה בקרבת עגלי Avodah Zarah. אמר לו, אם כן, למה סורה בהנאה? Rabbi Yehoshua said to Rabbi Ishmael, the cheeses of Gentiles is prohibited because they curdle in the stomach contents of calves to use for idol worship. Since it is prohibited to derive benefit from such calves, cheese curdled in their stomach contents is also prohibited. Rabbi Ishmael said to him, if that is so, why didn't the sages prohibit deriving any benefit from the cheese instead of merely prohibiting its consumption? Hisi'o ledavar acher, amar lo Yishmael, hech ata koreh, ki tov min dodecha mihayin, or ki tov min dodecha. Instead of answering Rabbi Ishmael, Rabbi Yehoshua diverted his attention to another matter and said to him, Ishmael, how do you read the following verse in Song of Songs 1-2? Do you read it as, for your love is better than wine, or for your love is better than wine? For your love is better than wine, or as, for your love is better than wine? Oh, same thing, but just pronounced different. Dodecha or dodaich? Dodaicha. Dodaich. Dodecha or dodaich. The first version, which is the masculine form, would be reference to God, whereas the second version, the feminine, would be reference to Jewish people. Amar lo ki tovim dodecha. Dodaich. אמר לו אין דבר כן, אין הדבר כן, שהיו חברו מנבל עליו לריח שמוניך טובים. Ishmael said to him that it should be read in the feminine, for your love is better than wine. Rabbi Yehoshua said to him, the matter is not so. For another verse teaches with regard to it, your ointments, shmonecha, have a goodly fragrance, and therefore do the maidens love you. Psalms 1:3. The phrase, which appears in the next verse, must be describing a male, and therefore it can be deduced that the preceding verse is also in the masculine form. And that's the Mishnah. Now for the Gemara. Yayin minalan. From where do we derive that wine belonging to Gentiles is prohibited? Amar Rabba Baravu. Amar Kna shechel mezif chemo yochelu yishtu yayin nesicham. Ma zevach asur bena. At yayin nam yasur bena. Rabba Baravu says that the verse states, who did eat the fat of their offerings and drank the wine of their drink offering, Deuteronomy 32:38. This verse juxtaposes the fat of Gentile sacrifices to their wine. Just as deriving benefit from their offering is prohibited, so too deriving benefit from their wine is prohibited. Zevach minalan dichsi v'yitzamdu leval pa'or v'yitzamdu leval pa'or yochlu zivchei meitim ma meda subano av zevach nam yasubano. The Gemara asks, from where do we derive the prohibition with regard to an offering itself? It is derived from the verse as it is written, they join themselves unto Baal of Peor and ate their offerings to the dead. Psalms 106:28. This verse teaches that just as deriving benefit from a corpse is prohibited, so too deriving benefit from an offering of idolatry is also prohibited. Okay, umeis gufa minachan asya sham egla arufa ksiv ha'o v'tama sham miriam ksiv ha'sam arfu sham es ha'egla v'nachal ma lahan asuvano. The Gemara asks, so where do we derive the prohibition against the corpse itself? The Gemara answers, it is derived from a verbal analogy from the words there and there, employed with regard to the heifer whose neck is broken, to absolve a city from bearing responsibility for the death of a visitor. It is written here, and Miriam died there. Numbers 20, verse 1. And it is written there, and the elders of that city shall bring down the heifer into a rough valley, which may neither be plowed nor sown, and shall break the heifer's neck there in the valley. Deuteronomy 21:4. Just as there, deriving benefit from the heifer is prohibited, so to here deriving benefit from the corpse is also prohibited. Yehoshua ben Nun, Amri devei Rabbi Yanai kapara ketiv ba kekadashim. And there, from where do we learn that deriving benefit from the heifer is prohibited? The sages and the school of Rabbi Yanai say a term of atonement is written with regard to a heifer whose neck is broken. See Deuteronomy 21:8. And I wasn't going to bring this up, but I have to right now because it happened again. On this calendar, today is the 21st day of Tammuz, and Deuteronomy 21 came up. So what do you got here? And 13 days before that would be the 8th of Tammuz, which is 8, 18, 8, and it's Deuteronomy 8, 21 verse 8. And also Numbers is 20 verse 1, and yesterday was 1, and today is 10 to 12 at 1, and 21:4, and 13 days behind the Gregorian calendar is going to be 24, which is 4. So these verses show up on today's calendar. And there, from where do we learn that deriving benefit from the heifer is prohibited? The sages said in the school of Yanai, a term of atonement is written with regard to the heifer whose neck is broken. Deuteronomy 21:8, as it is written with regard to sacrificial animals. This teaching that deriving benefit from the heifer is prohibited, just as deriving benefit from sacrificial animals is prohibited. והחמץ של גויים שהיה מתחילה סוין פשיטה משום דאחמץ בקהלי ישראל. אמר רבי ישי עשה להשמעינן חומץ שלנו ביד גוי אין צורך חותם בתוך חותם. אם משום אני שוחה לא מנסחי, אם משום החלופה כיוון דיקחותם לא טורח ומזייף. The Mishnah teaches, and vinegar belonging to Gentiles that was originally wine is prohibited. The Gemara asks, isn't this obvious? Just because the wine is soured, should its prohibition lapse? Rav Ashi said, this comes to teach us that our vinegar that is in a Gentile's possession does not require a seal within a seal for it to remain permitted for consumption. Rather, one seal is sufficient. Rav Ashi explains the reason for this leniency, if the concern is due to idolatrous libation, Gentiles do not offer libations of vinegar. And if it is due to the concern that a Gentile may secretly exchange his prohibited vinegar with the vinegar of a Jew, since there is one seal, the Gentile will not exert himself and forge a different seal in order to facilitate the exchange. Amravila שנינו יין מבושל של גויים שהיה מתחילה סו יין אסור פשיטה משום דאי בשיל קלי סורי אמר רש"י עשיה להשמינן יין מבושל שלנו ביד גויים אין צורך חויסם צורך חויסם אם משום אינה שוחה Lo minaschi. Rabbi Ilah says, we learned that cooked wine belonging to Gentiles that was originally uncooked wine is prohibited. The Gemara again asks, isn't this obvious? Just because the wine was cooked, should its prohibition lapse? Rashi said, this comes to teach us that our cooked wine that is in a Gentile's possession does not require a seal within a seal for it to remain permitted for consumption. Rather, one seal is sufficient. Rashi elaborates, if the concern is due to idolatrous libation, Gentiles do not offer libations of cooked wine. And if it is due to, and to be continued.